Welcome to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Emineth. Today we're going to be talking to Robby Dube, who's a partner at Eckland and Blando Associates Practice out in Minneapolis. He does a lot of work in North Dakota. He's been on with Ladies of Another View and talked a lot about the Fufeng. And so there's a case with some ranchers and some going with the Beef Commission in the state of North Dakota that he's representing, and we want to talk about that. We're also going to have Dr. Jake Schmitz, who's going to give us a healthy living tip. So often in life we have lots of things going on, and sometimes it's just helpful to get some tips on taking supplements and what we should be using or taking to enhance our lifestyle. I'm trying to figure that out myself, so maybe I can learn a tip from Dr. Jake Schmitz as well. So Robby, welcome to Open Range.
Thank you so much for having me. Happy to be here.
Hey, Robby, you've been on before a little bit, but before we do, tell us a little bit about your firm and the kind of things you've done in North Dakota. Even though you're in Minneapolis and you'd have a nationwide practice, talk to us a little bit about, kind of the things you've done in North Dakota, so our viewers kind of go, okay, this guy understands what's going on in North Dakota.
Sure thing. So my firm, Eckland and Blando, we primarily, a large part of what we do is we sue the government. We represent citizens across the country whenever the governments are taking away their rights or violating their constitutional rights or privileges. So what I've done in North Dakota, I first got involved with the Fufeng fight when Grand Forks was trying to stop the citizens from organizing a referendum to push back against the Fufeng project. They actually made us go all the way up to the North Dakota Supreme Court before, as we know, the government stepped in and said, you cannot let this facility be next to our nuclear Air Force bases. Now what I'm doing is I am representing a group called the Ranchers' Rights Initiative, along with 3 cattlemen who are suing the state of North Dakota, Governor Armstrong, and the Beef Commission, saying that the way they've set up this Beef Commission, the way they've done these appointments is actually unconstitutional. And so that's what the challenge is here today. And yeah, I don't think the North Dakota governors are a very big fan of me because I've sued Burgum, I've sued Armstrong, I'll probably sue the next one too.
And so, Robby, when you support and represent citizens, I mean, that's really foundational to what America is about. I mean, when government overreach, sometimes it's legitimate, sometimes it's not, but citizens having the right to be able to challenge a government position and focusing on citizens, that's kind of what you practice on, that's what you focus on supporting.
Absolutely, and I think that's the foundation of our constitutional republic. I mean, it's what separates us from the dictatorships and the communist party in China, is that when the government does something wrong, we can stand up and say, hey, we have inalienable rights, we have inalienable liberties, you cannot do this. And that's what that's what I like to do across the country. I don't care where the government is, I don't care what the politics are, I care that the people have their rights.
So, Robby, speaking of this case, give us some background on this Beef Commission and basically how, I guess it's the legislature helped set up the structure. It goes back a number of years, but in the end, it's kind of rigged. It almost seems like when I hear the frustration for some of these ranchers, they're saying, I mean, it's one thing to have a commission, and I get that and the process associated with that, but to make just because I raise cattle and I decide I don't want to belong to the Stockmen's Association or something to that effect, it seems like there's independent associations, and then there's how those things play into it, and citizens ought to have a right to participate in it at all levels. And that seems to me that's what the issue is. Is that correct?
Yeah, you hit it right on the nail right on the head. So the Beef Commission, as it's set up in North Dakota, there are guaranteed spots to different trade groups, right? So if you are a beef producer, every single spot goes to the North Dakota Stockmen's Association. And then we have some for the Dairy Council, the Feeder Council, the Livestock Association. Then there's at-large seats. Those at-large seats theoretically are, and these are all appointed by the governor. That's really important. These at-large seats theoretically are open to anyone. You can self-nominate yourself. You don't even have to be nominated to get on there. Every single seat in North Dakota history has always gone to the North Dakota Stockmen's Association. Every single one. It does not, and they have had unaffiliated cattlemen, so people who are not part of any organization. IBAND, which is an independent cattlemen association, has members who have applied. Doesn't matter. If you are not part of the North Dakota Stockmen's Association or the North Dakota Cattle Women, which calls itself an auxiliary of the Stockmen's Association, you have never in North Dakota history even had a shot of getting on the Beef Commission. So it's entirely controlled by this one trade group. And whether you like the Stockmen's Association or not, that should alarm you. Because government, first off, shouldn't be picking winners and losers ever. But second, a private organization should not have complete control over a government body that spends millions of dollars a year. right? But that's exactly what we have going on right now. And that's what we're trying to show the court is unconstitutional. That under our laws, the government cannot decide that you are more worthy of having a position, that you deserve to have a position, or that you're disqualified based on whether you're part of a private association or not. That is unconstitutional.
You know, Robby, I think the thing about it is it's not like I have any beef against the Stockmen Association, and probably in your case you don't either. It's just that when it's a government entity set up like, you know, the Beef Commission, and then they have total control of it. My question comes down to, I mean, how many, if you take the cattlemen, there must be some statistic that defines how many people are members of the Stockmen Association versus the people that are ranchers or cattle, raising cattle in the state. Is there some statistics you can validate? I mean, is it like 50% or what?
No, the statistics that we're finding puts it somewhere between 10 to 20%. Of cattlemen and women in North Dakota are part of the North Dakota Stockmen's Association. So we're talking about a very small minority of the cattlemen being the exclusive ones with access to these seats. And if you are not on the North Dakota Beef Commission, you cannot get on the federal beef councils because those are only taken from the state beef commissions themselves, which means the only way you can ever get onto a federal beef council if you're not part of the Stockmen's Association is to move out of North Dakota and find a state that doesn't have this constitutional prohibition.
So, Robby, why? Just give me some background. So, you're representing these three gentlemen that are taking this case forward to the Supreme Court. Why would they not want to be members of the Stockmen Association? To me, it seems like, well, just join. Is it? I mean, what's the cost? And just give me some background why they choose not to. Is it positive or negative?
Yeah, so to clarify real quick, we're still at the district court. So we're not at the Supreme Court yet. We're in Burleigh County. But you know, so the plaintiffs is Ranchers' Rights Initiative, which is an organization that represents unaffiliated cattlemen, and then the three cattlemen. The idea here is, you know, maybe they don't want to pay the dues. Maybe they don't believe in the mission of Stockmen's Association. Maybe they, you know, think that there shouldn't be organizations at all. But I think the bigger principle for all of these guys is that it's just not right. It's not right that I should have to pay money to some private organization to get to have a say in my government, to get to have a shot at the seat that's supposed to be open to all cattlemen across the state. And so I think it's a principle issue. It doesn't, if it was IBAND, you know, or if it was the North Dakota, you know, cattle ranchers over the age of 80, you know, or whatever the organization is, if they had an exclusive monopoly over these seats, that would be a problem to my clients. So it's not necessarily the Stockmen's Association specifically, although each of them have their own various concerns with it. It's the fact that any organization has this exclusive monopoly over it, especially one that's as politically powerful as the Stockmen's Association.
So, Robby, one of the issues have to do that we've reached out back and forth related to this issue. Talk to us what's at stake right now and what the government's trying to do to intervene and the implications of what's going on right now.
Yeah, so right now what's happening is something I've never encountered in all of my years of litigating against the government. The government is trying to stop us from getting any discovery whatsoever. They are trying to say that we are not allowed to get documents, that we are not allowed to get information, that we are not allowed to even depose anyone in the government or any of these other organizations. So what had happened is we said, hey, you know, this could be a really straightforward constitutional case, right? We know who you appointed. We know who you did not appoint. Let's just agree on the facts as they are, and we can go to summary judgment, which is the stage before trial. And the government said, no, not only are we not going to agree to the stipulated facts you proposed, we're not even going to engage in this process at all. Go do discovery. Okay, so then I served the government with discovery, and I served subpoenas on key individuals at play here. And then the government ran to court and said, no, they shouldn't get to do discovery at all, because it'd be too burdensome for the government to answer. And they're asking for too much information, and they shouldn't be allowed to talk to these people, right? So they answered the complaint, which I've never seen the government do. They always move to dismiss. So that was stage one. They answered, which moves us into discovery as a matter of law. Then when I said, well, hey, we want to save costs, we want to be reasonable, let's just agree to facts, they said no. So when I did what I am allowed to do under the law and asked for discovery, they said, no, court, don't let them do it. Don't let them find out any information. Don't let them get any documents. It's absurd. And I think it raises a really big question. What is the government so concerned about? What are they so worried that we're going to find if they have to answer these questions that they don't want us to engage in this process at all? And even if it's nothing, even if there's nothing they're worried about and they're just being difficult, that is a big problem as a matter of constitutionality, as a matter of the judicial system. The idea that your government can turn around and say, not only are we not going to not only are we going to act unconstitutionally, we're not even going to let you engage in the legal process we've set up to find out anything about it. That is what the government is trying to do right now.
That's unbelievable. I had a lady I've interviewed had to deal with suing pharmaceuticals. Her husband committed suicide, and it's been going on. It was like 20 years ago, and she ended up suing and went after Pfizer. It was a long battle. She ended up winning, but what happened is in the discovery process, they found out that Pfizer knew all about the potential for suicide risk with those that took to drugs. And the whole point of the discovery process, it should be our constitutional right to do it. And so to your point, this is a much bigger issue. What kind of precedent is being set over such an issue of the Stockmens? And so we're going to go to the break, and we come back. Robby, I'd like to drill down and have you help us understand why would the government do it, and who are you suing in this related to? Who's covering? Is it the Stockmen Association? Is it the governor? Is it, I mean, what's behind all of this stuff? So I think that's kind of a fascinating thing to try to get our head around. So, Robby, we're going to go to the break. We'll be right back. So we've been talking to Robby Dube, partner at Eckland and Blando, partner dealing with the Stockmen Association and lawsuit against the state. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hey, I'm Corey Heppola, and a long time ago, I left my small town for a big city. Now, I wonder, what would it be like to move rural?
Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't have nice things.
So, I'm traveling to different small towns across the Midwest to find out.
It's like every year in the spring, there's always like a revitalization of just excitement.
This is my town.
Oh, jeez.
Sunday night, 6:30 on Beck TV.
Ashley, North Dakota is where life moves a little slower, but never gets dull. From hunting, camping, and fishing to safe streets where kids can be kids, this is the best of small town living. And Ashley offers everything you need, from healthcare to hardware to countless ways to stay active. Here, we've invested in our future with major upgrades to roads, parks, and education. Whether you're here for the day or here for life, you'll find Ashley's where you ought to be.
Let's be frank, it's a pain to be without your vehicle after an accident. That's why you should take it to Jerome's Collision Center. Our shop is supersized, and we have the qualified staff to fill it up and work on your vehicle, step by step, piece by piece, in crazy fast time without sacrificing quality. When you need us, we'll turn your bad experience into a good one. We're Jerome's Collision Center, and we're the best at what we do.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
Hello, friends. This is Culture Crossroads. Join me, Andrew Southwick, and my co-hosts, R.C. Williams and Juliana Ormond, as we tackle the issues shaping America. From politics to pop culture, to faith, freedom, family, and the future. From a faith-based conservative perspective that you won't get anywhere else. We stand at the intersection of faith and freedom. This is Culture Crossroads. Culture Crossroads. Sundays at 5 p.m. Central on Beck TV.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary. I'm talking to Robby Dube, who's a partner in a law firm out of Minneapolis. And the idea with it is that there's a lawsuit going on against the state of North Dakota, the governor and Stockmen Association now to deal with the Beef Commission. It seems like there's some precedent that could be set that we as citizens of North Dakota need to push back on. And I think it's a very interesting case. So Robby, I'd like to get your thoughts on the more details of why is the government pushing back on something that's so, when there's 15-20% of the people that are members of the Stockmen Association, and it's kind of like an inside job. What's the pushback? I get the Stockmen Association, it's power. They want to control the board and control the money, I assume. But what about the other people? Why? Because the governor appoints these members that probably get submitted to him with a recommendation. So anyway, I got a lot of stuff rattling in my head here, and I'd rather have you kind of put some flesh around that and make sure I get that correct.
So what we asked for is we said, look, we want to depose the governor's office to ask about these appointments. We want to get the documents and communications you've had with the Beef Commission and the Stockmen's Association, and we want the communications between the Stockmen's Association and the Beef Commission. We also want to depose the former commissioner or head of the Beef Commission. We want to depose the Stockmen's Association, and we want to depose some people in the governor's office who handle these appointments. Then we also said we'd like to depose Governor Dalrymple, because the other governors is either Burgum, who is obviously a department secretary in the federal level, or I believe Kramer, who is a senator, and then Armstrong, who's the current sitting governor. But a lot of these appointments were made by Dalrymple. So we said we'd like to talk to him too. And they said, you don't get to talk to any of those people. Court, don't let them talk to anyone. Don't let them get any information. And so the question becomes, if all I want to know is whether the governor was talking to the Stockmen's Association and the Beef Commission was talking to the Stockmen's Association about who should get on there, what are you so worried that I am going to find that you are running to the court and saying, absolutely not, you cannot have any of this? I think the implication is probably clear that because if our whole claim is the Stockmen's Association is controlling this process, and they're saying don't get any communications between the Stockmen Association and government officials, I mean, we don't know because we don't have the documents. But to me, that raises a pretty big red flag, and that really raises my interest: is why does the government care so much? Because if there's nothing there, or if it's innocuous conversations, what's the big deal? Now, one thing that the government has raised, they said, well, go to the state archives. Just go to the state archives that has all the past communications. Well, that has all the past communications formally between the actual government emails and the Stockmen's Association. That doesn't have all the communications that actually happen. Right? If someone's on their private cell phone, if someone is having a phone conversation, if they're in person, that's part of it. And the other thing that I think is really important here is we have gotten some documents from the archives, and they were handwritten notes. One of them was an I-band member had applied, and there was a note saying, do not appoint I-band member. Another one was saying, Nancy Jo Bateman does not want this individual, not part of Stockmen's Association. Right. And I think that's a paraphrase. That's not verbatim, but we've already found some documents like that. I should get to ask about that. Why is the governor saying if you're an I-band, don't appoint? Why is the governor or someone in the governor's office saying if you're a part of they don't want this person who's not in the Stockmen's Association? The government doesn't want me asking about any of that.
So when you look at this, it goes back to Governor Dalrymple. It's been a bit, it goes back 10 years, really, I guess, if we go back to Governor Dalrymple. He's obviously retired and trying to pull that stuff back out of him as far as what he may recall. But your point is you should have a right to at least ask him the questions. In other words, if it's in the archives and you discover it, but the reality is if you can't have any questions to ask them directly, you can't put the case together to really understand the context of what's been going on and how it's been basically, controlled by the Stockmen Association.
Exactly. Now, maybe we get into these depositions and he says, I don't remember. It's been 10 years. That happens all the time, right? But the idea that I don't even get to ask him, that I have never seen the government try to do. And I think another flip side of that too is, again, he may say, oh, no, I can explain that. Yeah, she said that they didn't want this because it's I-band, and I turned back around and said, well, no, of course we got to appoint I-band. I don't like him because he's only done this for 3 years. I don't think he's experienced enough. Maybe there's a legitimate explanation. But again, to say I don't even get to ask about it, that it just raises huge red flags to me. And I've never seen the government work this hard to make sure that I don't get to get a single question, I don't get to get a single document from them.
So, Robby, when you say the government, walk me through or walk our viewers through who's the government and who is it the Attorney General's office defending the governor, or walk us through who the government is, if you will, that's kind of pushing back against your group.
Yeah, so the government right now, who we sued was the state of North Dakota, the North Dakota Beef Commission, and the governor in his official capacity. So it's not Kelly Armstrong as the man, it's Kelly Armstrong as the office of governor. All of those are represented by the Office of Attorney General, right? So that is who the defending attorney is on the other side. That is the one who has brought the motion to the court to say, don't let them get any discovery.
So do you have documentation from Drew Wrigley, our current Attorney General, or is it from staff people that are just like, we're busy, we don't want to wasting our time? I mean, what do you have from them in communication directly, please?
Well, so it's the motion they filed, right? So the stipulated facts, I sent an email to them saying, and we had some conversation. I said, hey, here's the stipulated facts. I think we can all agree, like, these are neutral. I'm not saying, please agree that the government is bad and did the wrong thing here. It's just, please agree that this is who was appointed. Please agree that this is who was not appointed. Please agree that this is, the membership associations they were in, like very basic things. And they said no. So then I had to do discovery to prove those very basic things that the government won't agree to. And it is in them, and they turned around and filed a motion. So not an email to me, not a, hey, can we make some sort of compromise or agreement? It was, here's a motion straight to the court. Don't let them do any of this, right? So the motion is public record. Anyone can go pull it, what they're trying to find there. And it's funny, they turn around, they say, well, they're asking for so much information. All I'm asking, and a lot of this information is, can you confirm this person was appointed? Can you confirm this person was part of this organization? I mean, again, basic things they could have agreed to. And now they're turning around and saying it's too much work for them to have to agree to. No, it's not. And you can't just turn around and say something's unduly burdensome in the law. You have to identify specifically why. How much time would it take? Why is it so burdensome? Would it be easier for the other side to do it, right? I mean, all these things they have to do, they're just saying it's too much work. It's too much work for the government to have to find out this information. Information, by the way, that they should already have because they're the ones who appointed these people.
So, Robby, the governor is the one that actually appoints people based on the recommendation from various cattle groups or just the Stockmen Association?
So the governor gets recommendations from the Stockmen's Association. Other individual groups can self-nominate. There's a self-nominate form, and people have self-nominated in the past. And in fact, we found a communication where someone said, hey, we see this self-nomination form. It looks like he's a Stockmen's Association member. Stockmen's Association, did you mean to nominate him, or is he self-nominating? And we don't have the next communication there, right? And so, clearly the governor is reaching out to the Stockmen's Association to get clarity on whether people are their members or not. But with the communications we have is there's a lot of communication from what we can tell. And again, this is just what the state archives was able to find, and just for Dalrymple, because they don't even have Burgum in the state archives, we've learned. And so those communications show that they're going back and forth with the Beef Commission and the Stockmen's Association saying, hey, we, do you want this I-band person? Do you want the Stockmen's Association person? But what frustrates me is the government saying, well, you shouldn't be able to get any of that from us, right? So we were lucky enough to find it in the archives to know that could even be in there, but the government was trying to say, you shouldn't be able to get any of this.
So, Robby, can you tell us who the plaintiffs are in this process and who are really taking on this lawsuit?
Yeah, so again, there's the nonprofit group, Ranchers' Rights Initiative, which it's not a dark money group. It's not some secretive DC group. It is made up of people in North Dakota, right? The three named plaintiffs are Kenny Grainer, Jeremy Maher, and Mike Heaton. They are cattlemen. They have been cattlemen in North Dakota for years, beef producers, and they have been eligible to be on the Beef Commission. They have either nominated themselves to be on the Beef Commission and did not get it, or they have been disqualified because they sought the checkoff refund. And so that's another part of our lawsuit is the law says if you get a refund, the checkoff, you cannot be on the board, even though you still have to pay the federal checkoff, and even though part of the federal checkoff goes into the state funds anyway. And so that's who the three named plaintiffs are. Those are the ones who are willing to stand up and say, okay, enough is enough. This is wrong.
Can you explain the checkoff, what you just described to the average viewer out there that doesn't have cattle and they don't understand the process? What does that mean?
Absolutely. And so, I'm a cattle rancher myself. I have a ranch down in Texas. Every time we sell a head of cattle, you pay $1, effectively a tax, but they call it a checkoff, $1 tax to the federal government. And here in North Dakota, you pay $1 tax to North Dakota. So it's $2 basically for every head of cattle sold. And that goes into a fund. $1 of it the state one goes directly to the Beef Commission. And then the federal one gets split between the state beef commission and goes up to the federal beef councils. So it's a tax on selling of cattle to fund supposedly, cattle related research, marketing, various different things like that. In North Dakota, you can request a refund of your state checkoff. So you pay the checkoff and then you go and you submit a form saying, hey, I'd like to get that money back, right? You still pay the federal one. You can't get that one back, but you can get a state refund. And what the North Dakota legislature did, they said, if you get that refund, you can't serve on the beef commission anytime in the next 3 years after a refund. All right. So that's what the checkoff is. And that's another thing we said, well, that's unconstitutional, right? You can't just limit, just because someone got a refund doesn't mean that you can just say they're ineligible to serve on the board. That doesn't make any sense. What is the reasoning behind that? Because if it's supposedly, well, they got a refund, so they shouldn't get to spend the money, they paid the federal one, and the federal one goes into the state one. So they still paid into the fund. And so that's another basis that we're saying this is unconstitutional.
So, Robby, we're going to want to keep following this because this has such implications much greater than just the lawsuit that's going on right now. We're going to go to the break, and when we come back, I want to talk a little bit about your working with the Fufeng and Chinese land ownership that came on when you defended the citizens related to the city of Grand Forks. I think that's a fascinating story as well. And of course, there's a few things we want to wrap up on this discussion as well. So we've been talking to Robby Dube, a lawyer from North Dakota, representing some plaintiffs from North Dakota suing the Beef Commission, the state of North Dakota. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson is a family-owned dealer with expert staff that know their products front to back. We stock over 150 units of all types and can custom order a trailer with the unique features and capabilities you require for brands you can trust. Our experienced service team is the reason we're also the best place to have your trailer customized or repaired. Count on Base Flug Trailers of Dickinson to keep you hauling.
Come on in and experience small-town hospitality and the personalized care that makes car buying a pleasure.
We know that every journey starts with the right car. Whether it's school drop-off, weekend road trips, or your daily commute, we have the right vehicle for you and your family.
With trusted brands, affordable prices, and a team that treats you like family, finding your next car has never been so easy.
We pride ourselves on personal attention and quality service. The Set Motors, where our customers send their friends.
We're the ladies of Another View. Join us at 9 a.m. weekday mornings.
We'll discuss issues you care about from local and national perspectives.
You'll hear unique stories from fellow North Dakotans, plus topics in the national spotlight.
Start your day off right with Ladies of Another View.
Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Beck TV and online at beck.news.
Buffalo Gypsy Boutique of Mandan is where classy meets Wild West. Our clothing, decor, and gifts range from sophisticated boho style to quirky and antique. And we have the whole family covered, right down to the little ones. We're home to exclusive brands such as Scully, Old Gringo, and Tanner Mark Leather. And we proudly feature American-made jewelry, artwork, and genuine Kimes denim. Find Buffalo Gypsy classing up the corner of 1st and Main in Mandan.
We are the St. Mary Sisters. We are building a new facility here in Bismarck, North Dakota, for the sake of training young women to be courageous teachers in this state. The sisters will educate the younger generation to be fully alive through truth and discipline. The sisters' life of devotion and joy will make a positive difference in your community. Check out what we're up to, see what's going on, and join our mission to make a difference in the lives of the children of North Dakota.
We've all heard the phrase, that kind of thing doesn't happen in our town. But here on Midwest Murder True Crime Stories, we will shatter that false reality.
In fact, it happens more often than we know.
And sometimes the details are lost in the back pages of newspapers,
forgotten on our news channels, and eventually erased over time.
We're here to talk about murder, diving into some of the most controversial cases in Midwest history.
This show will not shy away from the morbid details of these horrific events and the often ugly truths behind them.
Welcome back to Open Range. I'm your host, Gary Emineth, talking to Robby Dube, a lawyer partner from Minneapolis law firm. And Robby, if you just take the implications of this and having never seen the government to just say, we're not going to, actually wanting to dismiss the whole thing and just not respond to the request of discovery. And to me, that just goes against everything American that we represent, that we should be fighting for.
Yeah, I can't put it better. As exactly what it is. I mean, we are supposed to have a constitutional republic that answers to the people. The people have the power, and our elected officials are servants of the people. For the elected officials to turn around and say, I know that you have said that we're doing something unconstitutional. You don't get to learn about that ever. And in fact, you shouldn't have even been allowed to ask. That should just alarm everyone, especially when private citizens are the ones having to do the funding, having to afford the lawsuit to try to hold their government accountable. So the government gets to not only make people pay their taxes so they can defend them, and then they make them turn around and pay for this own lawsuit. Then they make them waste a bunch of money to try to even get information that they are entitled to.
I've had a gentleman, Lance Hagan, who's a farmer developer from Bismarck-Mandan area here, and he ended up having to sue the city of Lincoln. They took some land, built the road, and they should have just settled. But they have this insurance fund in North Dakota where and they have lawyers working in the process where they never really want to settle. So the average citizen that wants to just protect their property rights, or in this case, the Cattlemen Association, they got to dig in their own pocket. And how to actually win against the government is almost impossible. And that's what Americans, that's what happened in 1776. We had enough with the British, right? And we see the government's growing and growing and pushing back. And I'm just mind boggled that the Attorney General or the governor would say, let's just deal with this. And, you're right, it's not fair. The Stockmen Association represents 15 to 20% of the people. And you're telling me that they get to control the agenda and all these, I assume there's millions of dollars at stake in this.
Yeah, well, so it's not impossible to beat the government. I do it every day. Right. So let's be clear there. It is possible
to for you. That's good to hear.
It is possible to do it. And I've beaten them all around the country. I've beaten the federal government, state governments, local governments. So it's not hopeless. The government certainly wants people to think it is, though. And that's a big part of their strategy. And they do want to make it very unaffordable and difficult for people to do. As far as why the government's fighting this so hard, I really, I can't say. Every other checkoff is elected with an appointed seat, or maybe two. This is the only one that is exclusively appointed. And if the Stockmen's Association is doing such a great job, if they are so qualified to do this, then they should be able to get elected into that seat, no problem, right? I mean, that would be the thought process. Oh, well, they're so great. Why would I vote anyone else out? I think the fact that they're trying to keep it appointed is, it says a lot. It says a lot is what I'll say.
Yeah, I guess it speaks volumes for that. We're going to try to do a little more homework from the Stockmen side and see if we can get them to come on and tell us why they're so passionate about that. So, Robby, let's pivot a little bit. I'd like to talk about when you supported the citizens against the, give our viewers of Open Range a little background. I know you've been on Ladies of Another View and discussed this issue quite at length, but maybe not everyone has seen what you did in that instance. Give us some background on it, because that was a pretty serious battle fought and went all the way to the North Dakota Supreme Court before the federal government stepped in.
Yeah, so I represented the People for the Vote, LLC, along with Ben Graduelski, and various citizens in Grand Forks who had organized to bring a referendum petition to overturn the approval of this development agreement to bring in Fufeng. So it was a corn wet milling plant. They kind of did this Amazon headquarter style. Who can give us the biggest tax credits to come in? And it's going to be so great. And don't worry about the fact that our parent company is a Chinese Communist Party company. It's fine. We're just going to be right next to your military bases with all your nuclear warheads. Don't worry about it, right? So, of course, people were very alarmed. They said, okay, there's environmental concerns here. There's national security concerns here. The Grand Forks City Council and mayor refused to engage with the people, and they basically said, sit down, shut up. We know what's best for you. So the people brought a referendum, and the city sued to stop that referendum. Or sorry, they denied that referendum, so we had to sue. And they were saying things like, oh, you were supposed to have your signature on this side of the page and you put it on this side of the page. And oh, you're supposed to have this amount of boxes on the page, but you only had this amount of boxes. I mean, really tiny ticky-tack things to deprive people of their constitutional rights. And then there were larger claims they made, like you're not allowed to even bring a referendum on this type of claim at all, which is just not true under North Dakota law, and we beat them on that. They tried to say it would violate the United States Constitution for you to have a referendum, which is mind-boggling to me that the document that guarantees our liberties and rights supposedly is a document that is supposed to restrict the referendum right. So we were in Grand Forks. Every single judge in Grand Forks recused themselves. We got bumped over to Devil's Lake, had a hearing there. There were 7 grounds they raised as to why we shouldn't have the referendum. We won on 4 of them. We had to win on all 3. So we went up to the North Dakota Supreme Court on the remaining 3. And before we could, first off, the North Dakota Supreme Court made entirely new rules that had never existed before, specifically for our brief to reject it. So then we had to put a new brief in, which, again, another thing I've just never seen, North Dakota, the land of surprises. So we got all the way up to the North Dakota Supreme Court before the U.S. Air Force stepped in and said, you cannot allow this to be built next to our nuclear base. Are you insane, right? I can't believe we're even having this conversation, right? And then suddenly Grand Forks said, oh, we're going to dismiss the case. And then to make sure they didn't lose on the constitutional principles to preserve their ability to do this again, they moved to get rid of the case, saying it's moot now. We don't even need the referendum because we got rid of the agreement. And the North Dakota Supreme Court, every Supreme Court is very happy to get rid of a case so they don't have to do it. So the North Dakota Supreme Court said, great, we're going to get rid of this. And so they dragged this out for like over a year through multiple different motions, multiple different hearings, fought us tooth and nail, said they were racist, said they were ignorant, said they didn't know what they were talking about, only to turn around once the federal government said, this is insane. I represented the citizens all the way there. And then I've been representing citizens across the country fighting CCP affiliated plants. There's dozens of them. There's dozens of these projects coming in, and local officials, all they see is dollar signs, even though they're giving tax credits. So they're not going to get the money. All they see is dollar signs, and they don't care about the national security. They don't care about the environment, and they certainly don't care about their people's rights.
I think what's crazy about some of this is when you take these cities, let's just use Grand Forks as an example. Economic development. I mean, we're seeing battles that I think are coming related to minerals being shipped in from, Minnesota so they can be mined here. And we need some rare earth, to do all kinds of things. And I get all that. But why would we bring Minnesota's garbage in here to process and mine? Because they don't want to. And they just want wind, but they don't want coal. And so it's kind of like we become this dumping ground. And all of a sudden citizens, want to speak to this county commissioners or the city commissioners, like in this case of Grand Forks. I mean, what's their gig? I mean, it's really about the citizens and the people that they represent. But you always want to know what's behind the dollar signs and who's getting what to make this happen and to push it through. And so you wonder why everybody swirls around these conspiracies, because you just kind of scratch your head sometimes and just say, I don't get it.
Well, I think this is what happens when you have an entrenched bureaucracy that views the people as the problem. Right? When they lose sight of the fact that they work for the people, that they represent the people, that they serve at the goodwill of the people, they start to see the problem not as whatever it is they need to solve for the people. They see the problem as the people themselves. And they think that any request for information, any request to try to get in their way simply is an infringement on their power. And look, there's a lot of people who work in government who are really good people, really care about the citizens, who really care about what they're trying to do. There's a lot who don't. And there's a lot who care more about their position, care more about their power. And unfortunately, they will do whatever it takes to keep that power. And that frequently means trying to run roughshod over people's rights. That's what we saw in Grand Forks. That's what I've seen in Michigan, Illinois, North Carolina, Georgia, North Dakota, all over the country. That these little bureaucrats, the kind of petty tyrants of the small bureaucracy is unfortunately the same no matter what state that you're in.
I wonder what's going on with this related to what your lawsuit is related back to the Beef Commission in the state of North Dakota. If the legislature can do some things to resolve this. I mean, it wouldn't take much for the legislature to step in, but it just shows the lobbying group. So sometimes maybe what a person needs to do is look at who's getting checks from the Beef Commission, or not Beef Commission, but Stockmen Association, and just see what's going on in the legislative process, because it's really a function of everyday ranchers just fighting for their rights. And the legislature could just frankly solve this right out of the chute and make it easy for it not to happen. But obviously, there's been some lobbying that's gone on prior that impacts all of this.
Well, that's the easiest solution. It just changes so people have their rights back. I mean, it's not hard to do. There was a bill. There's been several reform efforts, but there was a bill in the most recent one to do that. From my conversations I've had with individuals who were legislators or who were involved in that process, they said the momentum was there. And then suddenly, one by one, people started peeling away, changing their minds. And why is that? I don't know inside the hearts and souls of these legislatures, but I would be curious to know what donations they got. I would be curious to know, were they incentivized by any trade associations or groups? But there's been legislative efforts to fix this, and they have always failed. Even though every other checkoff is elected. Something is so special about beef that cattlemen just can't be trusted to vote for their own representatives, apparently.
So this is unique to North Dakota, is what you're saying, correct?
I think there are a few other checkoffs that have elected. Sitting here today,
Okay.
I apologize, can't remember. But
Okay.
this process, this appointment process is pretty unique, especially to have it be the only one that's appointed, right? That's pretty unusual.
So, well, I guess we'll have to follow this through the next legislative session to kind of see what they can do to change some of this stuff. And probably we'll have to do a little digging and look at the voting records because you know how it is when people get frustrated with lobbyists, the association comes in, North Dakota had this big battle with property taxes, and pretty soon you have these groups that are, obviously that's why you have lobbying firms to represent interests, but it's when a government entity that people get elected for begin to lobby for their own power and their own position. Citizens just kind of say, I've had enough. And so we appreciate what guys like you are doing, even though I know the governor and attorney general probably don't like it. Robby, thank you for joining us, and we'll have you back as this unfolds.
That sounds so great. Thanks for having me on.
So we've been talking to Robby Dube, who's an attorney from Minneapolis representing a group of ranchers in North Dakota. And stay tuned, we're going to have Dr. Jake Schmitz back talking about supplements and how to live a little more healthy. I'm your host, Gary Emineth. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hi, I'm Scott Hennon, host of the What's on Your Mind program on Beck TV now. From Baker, Montana to St. Cloud, Minnesota, and everywhere in between. We're looking forward to having a conversation with you about what matters most. We're talking to newsmakers from members of Congress to the state legislature, and most importantly, the good folks that make up the great state of North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Montana. Every single day, you get a chance to tell us what's on your mind. And now you can watch What's on Your Mind live on Beck TV. Tune in 10 a.m. live for What's on Your Mind.
There's never been a better time to rediscover the style, reliability, and all-season, all-terrain fun of the all-new Nissan lineup at the new and improved Ryan Nissan. Whether it's the sleek and stylish Murano, the adventure-ready Pathfinder, or the reimagined, ready-for-anything 2026 Rogue, the all-new Ryan Nissan has the vehicle of your dreams at a price perfect for any budget. It's time to rediscover your passion for the road. It's time to rediscover the all-new Ryan Nissan, engineered to endure.
I'm Gary Emineth, host of Open Range. We've been at this for the past couple years. Representative Matt Heilman of Bismarck and former legislator Brandon Pritchard are going to do some regular segments on Open Range. While we cover a lot of politics, we're still going to be continue doing mostly all things North Dakota. One exception, Friday evening, I'll be doing a new show on Open Range called On the Horn. This show will be long interviews of 3 to 5 hours with the people I'm interviewing. They'll be airing week after week on that Friday evening. So thank you for being a part of the Beck TV and Open Range family.
West River Equipment of Mandan is here to help you maintain peak productivity in your operation. As an authorized dealer for many high-quality equipment lines, we have the new and used equipment it takes to make your farming, ranching, or construction operation profitable and efficient. West River Equipment also has the parts on hand and the experienced technicians in our shop to get your equipment back in action fast. Find what you need at West River Equipment on Old Red Trail in Mandan.
Hey, I'm Corey Heppola, and I grew up in a small town.
This road used to be gravel.
But a long time ago, I left to live in a big city. Now, I wonder...
Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't have nice things.
What would it be like to move back?
Man, it's mad love up in here.
So, I'm traveling to different small towns across the Midwest to find out. Because what do I really know about rural living? Oh. The people.
If there is anything that you can say about this town, it's that we take care of each other.
The innovation.
So none of this equipment even existed.
And the opportunities.
It's like every year in the spring, there's always like a revitalization of just excitement.
This is my town.
Oh! Oh, jeez! You were close.
7 episodes. Sunday night, 6:30 on Beck TV.
What's going on, everybody? Is Dr. Jake Schmitz back with another Freedom Health Talk
on Open Range. What we're going to be discussing today is to me, it's an important topic. And again, I look at this and like everything. To me, everything's an important topic. If we're talking about health, I think they're all important. This is one of those topics, kind of like my last segment is talking more about kind of generally speaking. Are you doing the things that you need to do? The simple things. Are you doing the simple things? I have had so many times, and I mean this, so many times where I've met with a patient or a client or somebody who wants my help, functional medicine in that realm. And they say, I'm taking these 50 supplements every single day. So I got to be doing most things right. Like I've got to be right. I've covered everything, haven't I? And then you realize like, okay, well, fine. You're taking 50 supplements and let's not even, talk about the fact that half of them counteract the other half. So you're really taking 0. But even if we said, yes, you're taking all 50 of those things, and they were all good. Let's pretend they were all good. They were all great things that you should be taking, right? Let's pretend. But even in that, this one person I'm thinking about, and this is a real thing. This really happened to me. He came in with a whole tote full of supplements. It was about 50 that he took every single day. And it was like, okay, you're taking all of these things. And then he told me but I'm not really eating because I'm not hungry because I just ate a bag full of supplements. Do you understand how, hopefully you understand. Hopefully you're like you missed the important thing for the not important thing or the little thing, right? So you're not doing the big thing right, but you're doing the little thing right. So what I want you to understand today, what we're going to be talking about is big things, like doing the big things right. I am not going to say don't take supplements. I take supplements every day. I take there's various amounts of things, but I take every day. But that said, a supplement by definition is something you add in addition to what you're already doing. I am supplementing what I don't get in my diet, if that makes sense. So people use supplements so, I don't want to say wrong, but there's so many times where they try to use a supplement in replace of the right thing nutritionally or in place of the right thing. One of the biggest things people are doing right now, whether they're doing it in drug form or supplement form, is the GLP-1 hormone, right? Like Ozempic. That's the drug form. But there's supplements people are touting and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. I mean, you can do that if you want to. And by the way, if you don't know this, Ozempic is the miracle weight loss drug that helps people burn fat. And I'm like, yeah, then you look like Skeletor half the time. And again, I don't know about you, but I don't think any of these people look fantastic. They're all like, look at me, I lost 80 pounds of fat. And I'm like, you also lost 30 pounds of muscle and you look like your skin is draping off of you. Like, no thanks. But always in life, your results will be better if you put in the work and you do the right thing. You could get that exact same result. Well, I don't want you to get that same result. You could get better results if you just change the way you live your life. Right? Does that make sense? I understand there's genetics involved, right? So I don't want to pretend people that are over fat. That's, by the way, that's a science term. That's not my term. That's like a medical term. Over fat is what they're called. Like really, really fat people. And again, I'm not judging. I'm just saying that's a medical term. But there is something to be said. There's a genetic component with some people build fat really easily. Some people build muscle really, really easily. That's true. But then there's also the concept that you understand your genetics, you understand your proclivities, and you understand your tendencies. And if you just avoid the things that will cause you to be fat, you can avoid a lot of it. And if you just do some of the other things that will cause you to lose fat and build muscle, that will work too. It isn't saying that you'll, be perfect, whatever that is. No. But I also don't want you to fall prey or fall victim to these people that are like, if you do this drug, it's going to be this. It's like, we still don't really know what's going to happen with all these people with Ozempic. I could venture a guess with what I think is going to happen with all these people who are doing this miracle weight loss drug. I don't think it's going to be good. But again, as I said, is if you just focus on the lifestyle things that you control, you can get a better result than that. So let's talk about that. We're going to talk about not necessarily as it relates to fat loss that's a whole longer conversation. And we'll see if we have time. I might get into some of that in this segment, or I'll just do it in another segment. But what I want to talk about is, are you doing some of the easy things? And here's the thing, and this is what I mean by this. I've known plenty of people that did Ozempic. or that have done, like Sanford had a thing for a while they were doing, the Sanford plan, the weight loss plan or whatever. I've known plenty of people who have done every single new gizmo gadget weight loss thing. And then once they quit doing it, what happens? You say it with me. Yeah, they gain all the weight back. You know it. I know it. I would be willing to bet the person who did it knows it. The moment you quit doing the right things, you gain all the weight back. Now, why is that? Because you never changed. You never changed. And that's why I think it's super important when we have a discussion about, like, are you doing the simple things? Like, don't talk to me about some new weight loss drug or the newest supplement. Like, I don't want to hear about that if you're not doing the simple things. And again, I'm not pretending like I'm perfect. So please don't hear that I'm saying like, well, I'm doing all these things. Like, I'm not either. I'm not saying that. I'm not making that claim. What I'm saying though, and again, I know most of the science as it relates to this stuff, and I still make poor choices sometimes. But my point though is that if you're not doing the things you know you should be doing, don't worry about all this other stuff. Like, don't get caught in the weeds. Don't get caught in the weeds over here thinking about what's the latest, this, that, or the other. When you know you should be eating better, right? Don't worry about what supplement or, oh, if I take these drops, it'll melt fat or whatever. Like, don't worry about all that. If I put on this patch, don't worry about that. If you're not eating well, like if you're not doing the simple things, don't worry about the complicated things, right? Or at least don't worry about them yet. Again, I'm not saying that these complicated things aren't good or bad. I'm not making a statement on that. What I'm saying is that if you're not doing the simple things, don't worry about the complicated things. Now, what are the simple things? Okay. Early in my practice, I used to talk about something called the 5 essentials, right? I'm going to talk about these 5 essentials, and these are the essentials to being healthy. And I think all of them are equally as important. And you know, depending on where you are in life and what your main issue is, one of them or one multiple of them might be more important than others. But in general, you need these 5 things to be healthy. Okay, I'm going to go through the essentials. Here we go. Hang tight, buckle up. This is going to be fun. Number 1 is your mind. Are you stressed to the gills? If you're stressed to the gills, that isn't good. It's causing you to age. There's a whole hormone cascade. You're shutting down rest and digest hormones. You're upregulating the fight or flight hormones. You're aging at a rapid pace. You're screwing with your blood sugar. That's bad. You got to work on that. Stress resilience, deep breathing exercises, slow down. That's important. That's your mind, mindset, stress. How you see the world is basically what happens. As a man thinketh, right? I think it's Proverbs 27:3, I believe, or it's either 3:27 or 27:3. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Meaning what you think about, you bring about. That's your mindset. Very important. Cultivating an attitude of gratitude. Are you grateful for things in your life? Because if you're not, I always say, if you're grateful, you get more opportunities to be grateful. It's amazing how that works. But if you're pessimistic and you're negative, you'll find more things to be negative and pessimistic about, which, by the way, causes you to die earlier than you should. That's a fact. Doesn't mean it's every time, but you get my point. Number 2 is your body, your mind, your body, your nervous system. Are you taking care of your nervous system? What does that mean? If you have joints that are stiff and locked up and I can't bend, I can't turn my head anymore, but if I turn my entire body, I might be able. No. If you can't move, that's a problem. That's where chiropractic comes in. Get adjusted. Making sure that all of my joints move the way that they're supposed to, right? That's important. It's especially important as you age. The amount of times I've seen people when they're driving, they can't turn their head and look over their shoulder. No bueno. That's number 2 is your nervous system. Number 3, nutrition. We've talked about this. Are you eating what you're supposed to be eating? Here's just a super simple way to look at it. Are you eating the rainbow? When you look at your plate, how many colors are on it? So you look at it and you can think about this. Well, what are some of the best colorful things? Are fruits, but vegetables as well. You can have meat. I'm not saying not to eat meat, but is it lean meat? Okay. Like steak, lean, or chicken or fish. You do that. But think colorful. My plate should be colorful, full of antioxidants and polyphenols, like super good for me, right? Or is it all bread? I think you know which one's better. At least I think so, based on research. Number 4 is exercise. Do you exercise? It's a yes or a no. And no, I don't mean like, well, I got up this morning out of bed, so that was definitely one up, down. No, no, no. Are you being intentional? Are you working on your strength and building muscle? I've talked about this in previous episodes. Grip strength is a sign of premature death. If you have a weak grip, you will die early. That's a fact. So are you exercising at all? Do you do something to strengthen your muscles, especially as you age? And then going back to nutrition, do you eat enough protein? Because if you don't have protein, even if you're exercising, you're not building that muscle. And if we use this in terms of like, well, I want to lose body fat and get stronger, eat a lot of protein and exercise. You're building muscle, which increases your metabolism, which decreases body fat. Now, you aren't going to lose weight by exercising. So that's a myth. You don't lose weight by exercising. You lose weight by eating better. But when you compound, when you add those two things together, guess what ends up happening is you get awesome results. And the last one is detox. Are you pouring a lot of crap into your body that you need to get rid of? If the answer is yes, like you eat a ton of artificial sweeteners or artificial sugars or just stuff that isn't real, like it's in a box and it's full of processed garbage, oh, that's a problem. Your liver's unhappy with you. So do better. You know better, do better. You use a bunch of toxic garbage in your house, just do better. Anyway, those are the 5 essentials. Hopefully this helps. Again, the point is just to be better. Move the needle in the right direction. You can do it. Don't worry about some latest drug. You have what it takes to be awesome and live a full, sweet life. This is Dr. Jake, another Freedom Health Talk. Love you guys till we meet again. Peace out.
Buffalo Gypsy Boutique of Mandan is where classy meets Wild West. Our clothing, decor, and gifts range from sophisticated boho style to quirky and antique. And we have the whole family covered, right down to the little ones. We're home to exclusive brands such as Scully, Old Gringo, and Tanner Mark Leather. And we proudly feature American-made jewelry, artwork, and genuine Kimes denim. Find Buffalo Gypsy classing up the corner of 1st and Main in Mandan.
There's never been a better time to rediscover the style, reliability, and all-season, all-terrain fun of the all-new Nissan lineup at the new and improved Ryan Nissan. Whether it's the sleek and stylish Murano, the adventure-ready Pathfinder, or the reimagined, ready-for-anything 2026 Rogue, the all-new Ryan Nissan has the vehicle of your dreams at a price perfect for any budget. It's time to rediscover your passion for the road. It's time to rediscover the all-new Ryan Nissan, engineered to endure.
I'm Corey Heppola, and a long time ago I left my small town for a big city. Now I wonder, what would it be like to move rural?
Just because we're small doesn't mean we can't have nice things.
This is my town.
Man, it's mad love up in here.
Sunday night, 6:30 on Beck TV.
$27,000 in credit card debt.
Okay.
You have to radically do something different, because if you keep doing what you've been doing, you're going to keep getting what you've been getting.
Ashley, North Dakota is where life moves a little slower, but never gets dull. From hunting, camping, and fishing to safe streets where kids can be kids, this is the best of small town living. And Ashley offers everything you need, from healthcare to hardware to countless ways to stay active. Here, we've invested in our future with major upgrades to roads, parks, and education. Whether you're here for the day or here for life, you'll find Ashley's where you ought to be.
Hey y'all, it's Trent on the loose. I want to tell you, Lady Blue and I, we got a lot of miles together, but you know what? You and I got a lot of miles together as well. And all I want to do is bring to you the information on how we maintain a domestic supply of food and fuel for future generations. So I'm going to continue to travel the world and unearth the stories that make it possible that we can live in a free United States of America.
I'm Gary Emineth, host of Open Range. We've been at this for the past couple years. Representative Matt Heilman of Bismarck and former legislator Brandon Pritchard are going to do some regular segments on Open Range. While we cover a lot of politics, we're still going to be continued doing mostly all things North Dakota. One exception, Friday evening, I'll be doing a new show on Open Range called On the Horn. This show will be long interviews of 3 to 5 hours with the people I'm interviewing. They'll be airing week after week on that Friday evening. So thank you for being a part of the Beck TV and Open Range family.